Welcome one and all as we close out the week here at the Damage Report. We're also closing out the week that leads up to the RNC, where we will be broadcasting live throughout next week and maybe returning with our lives afterward. That part remains to be seen, but we're gonna do as many shows as we can from there. For now though, we remain in our home studio, and joining us remotely once again, Mondale Robinson, how's it going?
What's going on, John? It's good to be back.
Good to have you here. Excited to break down the news with you. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about as we close out this week. We're gonna be talking a lot about Project 2025, our continued coverage of Donald Trump's laughably shallow attempt to distance himself from an organization pushing all of the policies he himself is pushing, and a whole lot more besides. We're gonna be talking about the New York Times editorial board. They finally did a big write-up on Donald Trump and his fitness for office. We're gonna talk about Arkansas, at least on the line of breaking the rules, I think, to stop an abortion ballot initiative. And on the latter half of the show, Mondale and I might be disagreeing a little bit. We will see. Stay tuned to find out. But anyway, we do have a lot to talk about. So as we race towards that, hit the like button. If you haven't already, you can send us comments, tweets, and super chats, and we'll respond as we go. One of you will earn yourself a Blue Apron gift card for those comments. And with that, are we ready to do this thing, Mondale?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's start with this.
Our country is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does such an incredible job at that. This is a great group, and they're gonna lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America, and that's coming, that's coming.
Did you catch that right there? That massive thing, did you catch that? You probably didn't, because he was slurring his words and his brain is rotting out of his nose. He was all over her. You can't really tell what he's saying, but what he's saying is the Heritage Foundation, massive influential right-wing think tank for literally decades, which helped to launch and create and is running Project 2025, is going to lay the groundwork. They do great work, and we already know he did a significant number of the things that the Heritage Foundation was calling for in his first term, and they're going to lay the groundwork. So that is footage from 2022 of him talking about them laying the foundation. So now they're laying the foundation with Project 2025. And of course, in the last week or two, ever since people started talking more about that project, he's been like, oh no, I don't know anything about it, man. I've never heard of those people. Who are Heritage? Who are they? Well, we know that that's ridiculous. We know that it's laughable. And now more and more footage is coming out of him hugging the group to him. And if that's not enough, by the way, nearly 140 former Trump aides and advisors have contributed to Project 2025, including 6 former members of his cabinet, 4 of his ambassadors, RNC members appointed to their positions in coordination with the Trump campaign. And we have more footage about the incredibly tight link between Donald Trump, his Agenda 47, and Project 2025. But I think at this point, we should probably be able to lay to rest the idea that it is not going to be forming the foundation of what he'll do as president. We'll get to that footage in just a sec, but Mondale, what did you make of that?
John, can you just tell me who is the Heritage Institute? I need that like a new hairspray. Can I use that for my curls? Listen, Donald Trump, I don't know if he was slurring his words because he never heard of the Heritage Institute, like he never heard of NATO, or because he was trying to lie and he knew he was gonna get caught in that lie. But hell, it's Donald Trump and all he does is lie. So listen, I am so disgusted with this, but it's also a trend that we're not hearing anywhere other than here, right? We've not heard Donald Trump try to lie when there's whenever 140 of your aides doing something, you're doing it. Period. Yeah. That's 104. You can't distance yourself from that. That's like me saying I'm not me. Period. The Project 2025 is a product of everything Donald Trump said, regardless of how much he tried to run from it.
Yeah, and also, okay, so you mentioned we got the 140 people. So obviously massive institutional and personnel ties between Heritage, Project 2025, and Donald Trump. He literally is going out and saying, they're awesome, we're gonna do all this stuff. Also, under the first term, he largely allowed them to dictate big portions of his agenda that he was either ignorant of or didn't care to actually exercise control over. But I think that the most damning argument against the idea that there's distance between them is that the Project 2025 agenda, when you look at all the list of things they want to do, is radical, but it's not different than Donald Trump. Like if some lefty think tank came out with a whole bunch of crazy proposals, and then the right was to be like, well, there was a person who contributed to Joe Biden on there, then you could have an argument, okay, as to whether it's likely to influence him. Because you could take a look at the policies and then take a look at what Joe Biden has done and said and see, well, is there a linkage there? In this, there's nothing but links. They're focusing on the exact same topics that he wants to focus on. I want someone to tell me what is on Project 2025 that Trump has said he's against. I know that coming out of the big conversation about Project 2025, when he's like, I don't know who they are, he's not telling us what they've pushed for that he's against. He'll say he doesn't know. He'll say he's not familiar. He's not saying, oh, point number 1's crazy, never gonna happen. Points 2 through 5, we'll see. Point 6, not in a million years. He's not doing that because it is his agenda. So anyway, with that, let's turn to some more evidence. We're just gonna pile up and pile up and pile up the evidence. So here is one of those 140, Paul Dans, former Trump administration official, director of Project 2025, on a right-wing podcast last year talking about the relationship between that group and Donald Trump.
Is it all right for us to to assume that President Trump is committed to the Project 2025, so that if we go through the effort of recruiting all these people and vetting them and training them, that he will say, okay, when I'm elected, these are my people?
Our project is what we call candidate neutral or candidate agnostic. It's there to serve the next conservative standard bearer, whoever that might be. Very important, though, in that is making sure the various candidates are aware of what we're doing, are bought in. Ultimately, yes, I think President Trump's very bought in with this. We're fortunate to have John McEntee, who many of your listeners may know helmed the Office of Presidential Personnel in what I would call the fourth quarter of the first term of Trump.
Okay, so there you have question laid out by, I'm gonna guess, Newt Gingrich's brother to Michael Cohen's brother. And he answered that, yeah, look, there's a great relationship, but it honestly doesn't even matter, because if for some reason it wasn't Donald Trump, if he goes to like jail or something, then some other Republican will do it. And look, I think that's honest in both parts. One, another Republican would do it. If it wouldn't matter if it was Nikki Haley or whatever. But also, I don't even think that they particularly care about it being Donald Trump. I think they like that it's Trump, in that he has a few things that he'll want to focus on and put a lot of his attention on, and the rest of it, he'll just be like, whatever, I don't care, don't bother me with the details, just do your crazy stuff or whatever. And so yeah, they have that relationship. And we can talk more about that, but I also want to just point out, like, we are rolling towards like truly radical policy in a lot of areas is gonna devastate a lot of communities. That's what they're pushing for, that's what they've been working for. And isn't it weird that he can be like so bored about it? We're gonna devastate these communities. You're not gonna have any bodily autonomy. I don't care about what you think about your gender. It's never gonna happen. And they're just so bored and lazy about the fascism that they're sending racing down the pike towards us. So let's play another video. This is Kevin Roberts, president of HERJ, talking about Trump.
He claimed on Truth Social that he, quote, knows nothing about Project 2025. He says he has no idea who's behind it. And then he went on to wish the people who are involved in the project well. Can you talk about, first of all, your reaction when you see President Trump say this and what you envision as being behind it tactically?
Well, I think it's the sign of a great leader who understands he's in a terrific political news cycle. He's run a really good campaign from start up to this point. And the left's mischaracterization of Project 2025 had become a liability. I think we've seen that really turn around in the last few days since that statement. So no hard feelings from any of us at Project 2025 about the statement, because we understand Trump is the standard bearer and he's making a political, tactical decision there.
Okay, so first off, that headshot is gonna haunt my nightmares. Second off, yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. It's their agenda. It looks really, really bad when you focus on it and you pay attention to what they wrote in their document. And that hurts Donald Trump, and he doesn't want to be hurt. So he's saying, I'm not with them. That's literally all of it. They understand that. They're the head of Heritage is like, yeah, see, when things are going well for him, he doesn't want us to drag him down or whatever. The only thing I disagree with him, Mondale, is where he says the mischaracterization of Project 2025. We're just reading what's in the document. Like, I literally was bragging about how stupid you guys were to put it all in one list and put a label on it that we can talk about when we opposed those policies before you organized them under Project 2025. Now it's just easier to talk about it. And so that gives up the whole game. It's obvious what's happening here, but Mondale, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, listen, the thing you're telling them what's stupid is actually the same thing this guy is doing. Like, you literally just said what Trump is doing. Trump is lying to people because his policies are unpopular with people, but he's still gonna implement them as soon as he's elected, if he's elected. It is absolutely ridiculous that these people believe that they can think Trump can distance himself from what he already, they forget he had a presidency where Project 2025 was Project 2016. We already saw this playbook where you just take over the Supreme Court and you try to take over all of government and you just put in your cronies in positions. Do away with the government and make everybody a Donald Trump appointee. What in the hell? What in the hell? I mean, seriously, these guys are not smart. Literally, he's telling the world, hey, all Donald Trump is doing is just, tricking his dumb supporters until he's elected. Well, not his supporters, because they could care less about policy. Donald Trump's just lying to the people that are never gonna vote for him. We don't care. We know what you guys are gonna do. Project 2025 was our reality during COVID when he was talking about drink Clorox or something, right? So why are we surprised that Donald Trump in Project 2025 wants to eliminate Department of Education? We know that. You put a person who was making money off education in charge of the Department of Education in jail. We saw it. We saw it already. It was your first administration. Duh.
Yeah, it's all so obvious, and I'm just glad that people wised up to it for a lot of different reasons. It took probably too long, but people started talking about it, and that's why they're running scared, and they should. We're gonna turn now to some of the polling. Here's why Donald Trump wants to fool you into thinking that he doesn't agree with an agenda that is indistinguishable from his own Agenda 47. Polls are coming out what the American voters think about Project 2025. And thankfully, here's some good news for America. They're not buying it. So you ask them a couple of different statements. So one is Project 2025 represents the next conservative Republican president's last chance to save the republic from, by sophomores in high school or whatever. Anyway, rescuing the country from the grip of the radical left through the right governing agenda and the right leadership. The other is Project 2025 is an extreme Republican plan that will give the president new and unchecked powers over federal agencies. That's literally just a fact. Eliminate abortion access and roll back action on climate change, LGBTQ+ rights, and other areas. I know that that's supposed to be like a statement that's biased towards our side. That's literally just what it does. It's just a fact. But anyway, based upon that, 49% say that they oppose the project, 31% said that they supported it. So not quite 2-to-1, but in that territory. And the 31% who support it is the same 31% of America that is willing to sign on to literally anything you come up with over the last 10 years, no matter how crazy, if it elevates them to a position of political or gender or racial superiority over the people around them. And by the way, once you get into the specifics, so that was sort of like vague framing, but you describe 19 of the project's policy proposals. 63% say they oppose it and 24% say they supported it. So the more they find out about it, the less they support it. And now we're below the 31%. Trump doesn't even have his core base on this once they find out how insane this thing is. And so, yeah, I would be running scared if I were them too, Mondale. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, it's just a fact. If you look at these people interviewing folk outside of Trump rally, when they just say Biden's name about something Trump did, they're like, oh yeah, I hate that, I'm anti that. And it's like, well, actually it was Trump. Then they're like, well, they're stuck and they're for it. But I think this just goes to show that people are not about policy anymore. Our elections have nothing to do with policy, man. Like, I'm telling people, we have this crazy divide because white people are really afraid that somebody's gonna take their America. Unfortunately, they forget that they took somebody's America first. And the idea that it is as white as it is only because of illegal immigration laws and tactics, including the Chinese Exclusion Act, the what they did to keep all Africans from immigrating to America until the 90s, what they did to keep brown people from America until the 80s. So I think what we're seeing right now, Donald Trump is a creation of what was Newt Gingrich policy and also white fear.
Yeah. I mean, when you actually break it down, it's radical in the lengths they want to go to dial back people's rights, put right-wing Christianity in charge of the country and everything. But a lot of it at its core is, as you said, it's an evolution of 90s era republicanism. They have the things they actually care about: the deregulation of corporations and the tax cuts. That is the point of all of this. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff designed to delude or appetize mainly poor straight whites into supporting giving all of the money to the richest people in the country. So, you get to give a middle finger to a trans high school teacher or something like that. Women lose some of their rights, and I guess I don't need money anymore. You can just hand it all over to corporations. That's been the project of the Republican Party for decades. They're I guess more effective now. They're emboldened, by the way, to be more openly homophobic than they were in past decades, way more openly racist and misogynistic than they were in past decades. But it's not, it's just it's a quantitative difference, not a qualitative difference. This is what they were doing this whole time. Yeah. And it's what Trump supports. Final thought goes to you.
Yeah, John, listen, this is not even a new strategy. It worked so damn well the first time they tried it. They thought they'd just recycle it. Think about Bacon Rebellion, where poor black people and poor white people told rich elites, you will no longer exploit us and try to keep us in servitude longer than the 7 years, right? We will get freedom. When the elites found out that poor white people and poor black people were about to attack them, what they do? They gave white people certain rights that they wouldn't give black people. White people had the right to marry. White people had the right to own guns. Hello, the birth of the Second Amendment. White people were allowed to never be indentured servants or slaves for life. And what else? White people can become citizens and black people couldn't, i.e. we had slavery created in America. We're at that point again where the elite, through Donald Trump and his cronies, and also, like you said, the policies of the 90s and deregulations, we're at the point now where we have poor white people who get more resources on average than any other group of people in this country. Poor white people, which is a minority of the population, less than 20% of the population are rural, poor white people, but they get the outreach to them is oversized. You hear mainstream media all the time talking about this. Oh, what is an average American saying? And then they talk about somebody in Iowa. This belief that these people are so powerful is tied to a racist institution called the United States Senate. Yeah. All of it is linked, right? This idea that these few people in the center of this country are more important and they have more power than all of the people in California, where people in California outnumber the majority of those states combined. And they only have 2 senators where they have about 20.
You're 100% right. In defense of considering people in Iowa the average voter, if you just take the coasts and then you average it, you hit Iowa. So that makes sense. I'm kidding. No, it's never made any sense to me. And by the way, and to your earlier point, you're 100% right. It's driven by anxiety and fear, mostly of poor whites, that their country is being taken away. But if you were a poor conservative white person, you're watching this, I just want to be very clear. It has never been your country in any of the ways that the elites care. It's been your country in the supremacist vibes way. You get lifted up, and as you point out, they do get some more resources given to them. But government is not organized to benefit them. It's organized to benefit far wealthier people than them. Everything is so obvious in American politics, but nobody sees it. That's gonna be the title of my first book. Everything is so obvious in American politics, but nobody sees it. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna take a short break. When we come back, we're gonna talk more about Project 2025, including some bad news cycles for the organization. That and more after this. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. In the members' comments, Lynn says, yesterday was the day Trump was originally scheduled to be sentenced. That's true. It was supposed to be National Slurpee Day. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So disappointed that didn't happen. Thank you, Supreme Court, for giving us a king. Chris says, John, the answer to what is Trump against in the Project 2025 proposal? Number one, in the Project 2025 proposal, there are no pictures. 2, the proposal is more than a page or too long. Yeah, he is against that. But were he to read it or have it like zapped into his brain Neo style, I think he'd agree with much of it. The words he understands anyway. Galfar says, Heritage likes it that it's Trump because he's easy to influence and control. Yes, I agree. I think that he is more pliable and easy to manipulate along like emotional and psychological lines than a lot of these Republicans. But again, on a lot of the core policies, like what did Trump, the biggest things he achieved in his first term? Exact same thing every Republican achieves in their first term, massive tax giveaways to rich people and corporations. That was the big thing, anti-regulation and setting us back in the fight against climate change. These are not like, it's not like you roll the dice with a Republican, that's what you get. And if he wins, that's what you will get again. Okay, let's see. Swedane Dragon gifted 10 memberships. Thank you, Swedane Dragon, much appreciated. John Fox, thank you for being a member. That is much appreciated as well. Drew Goo says in a super chat, did Brett throw himself out for garbage person this week? That's funny. No, so Brett normally is here on Fridays. Brett is part of the advanced team heading to Milwaukee, which I hear from the next possible president of the United States is a horrible place, terrible city. But anyway, that's where the RNC is gonna be and he's helping to set us up. So he'll be back on Tuesday or Thursday, PDR next week. I think we're still trying to figure it out, but we're gonna do an in-person show, me and him at the same desk. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. Corey F, member for 42 months says, why did you stop doing the pre-port? That's a great question. It's a combination of things. So one, issues with the YouTube live app. It has always been garbage. They changed a whole bunch of things without actually saying it. It took me several days to figure it out. If you were here for 1 or 2 of the pre-ports that were all wrong, then you'll know what I'm talking about. So I have figured that out. We also are like, we're prepping for the RNC thing. There's just been a lot of stuff that has to be done before the show. It was always hard anyway to fit in the pre-port. So I've just been doing that. It will return. It just hasn't been able to be here this week. It probably will not be here next week, but that remains to be seen. Maybe like Brett and I can do pre-ports or something. Anyway, Dragoon Dragon, member for 17 months says, literally just leaving urgent care as I turn on TDR. Please make my day better, Dragon Squad. Well, I mean, I guess it's better that you're leaving urgent care than headed into it because you're capable of leaving. I don't know what you're going through. It sounds urgent. It sounds bad. So I hope from here on out your day only improves. Is my hope. Let's see. Arch Dragon says in a super chat, just one word: preach. So I'm not sure if that's to me or Mondale or about what, but as a general term, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Ill-advised member for 36 months says, Mondale for trash day. Hell yeah. Brett's okay. Digging the silver hair. I'm a 3-year-old dragon. Woot. Thank you. I love the opinions on a lot of people there, all in one message. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Yukon Man says, John, can you start a 1 day a week good news only show? Probably not, for a couple different reasons. One, I probably would not be able to find enough to actually fill it. And 2, I love the idea and we try to fit it in where we can. But to be clear, people very rarely care about the good news stories that we do. And I've certainly noticed that. Doesn't mean we don't do it. We do coverage to reflect reality. But I think people in the abstract like the idea of good news more than they do in actual practice. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please hit the like button as we launch into something fun or weird. I'll let you decide. These days, Project 2025 could use some good press. Let's see what they've got out there in the news today. Well, one of the creators of the organization has been threatening gay furry hackers in a series of leaked texts. So, good news for him, I guess. Anyway, these are self-described gay furry hackers. They're part of a group called SiegeSec that released some text exchanges between them and Heritage Foundation executive Mike Howell after they did a leak of information from the organizations. 2 gigabytes of data from the Daily Signal. That's their blog site, basically. And that included full names, email addresses, passwords, and usernames of people associated with Heritage, according to Trump. And so they said they did that to shed transparency to the public regarding who exactly is supporting the conservative think tank. So you can like or not like the hack or the leak or whatever. I don't think anyone's like financial information came out, but still, if you have a problem with it, that's fine. Howell has a problem with it, and he probably is gonna go a little bit further than you might in expressing his rage. So he said to them, "Are you aware that you won't be able to wear a furry tiger costume when you're getting pounded in the ass in the federal prison I put you in next year?" So that's aggressive. Also, notice that the executive of the Heritage Foundation says he will have the power to put people in federal prison next year. Just to give you an idea of how powerful Heritage and Project 2025 think they are, they will be personally locking up those they disagree with. Anyway, one of the gay furry hackers responded, "Such unprofessional language from an executive director. Would you mind if I shared this?" And then he says, "Please share widely. I hope the word spreads as fast as the STDs do in your degenerate furry community." To which the hacker says, "Meow," and put an image of a cat. Mike Howell then said, "Bestiality is a weird sin. It shows you've gone a few clicks too far in trying to satiate your deviant appetite." To which the hacker said, "What's your opinion on vor?" Which I believe is a reference to sexual cannibalism. So they're having a little bit of fun with it. And so that was revealed, and Mike Howell obviously looks like an absolute maniac. And I'm assuming you, like I, coming out of this are thinking, "Oh dear God, please leak his Google search history," because that guy has a lot of thoughts about pornography. And I personally would maybe not love to actually see, but I'd love to know in the abstract what it is that he's searching for. Maybe he didn't go a few clicks too far, but how far did he go? But anyway, that got leaked. And he quote retweeted it because he is a very, very cool guy with the lyrics from Eminem. And I am whatever you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would I say I'm not gonna read the entire thing. But he used those decades old Eminem lyrics to show that he doesn't mind being revealed to be a super creepy weirdo who is, again, very, very cool. And there's a lot of other comments, some arguably even worse than these. Mondale, what are your thoughts about this duel?
I just need people to understand what was said. The most important part, I'm gonna lock your ass up next year. Like, what is that? What does that mean? How? Federal. He said federal prison. Federal prison. So either you live in DC, the only people who go to federal prison, people that are convicted of federal crimes, or people who live in Washington, DC, because Washington, DC doesn't have prisons. So I'm confused. What is this man saying to these people? And the world should be making a thought about that, because Donald Trump seems like somebody has already appointed themselves retribution chief or whatever staff, czar, whatever that czar will be. You know what I mean? It's scary.
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, look, that is what this movement is about. It is people who are deeply flawed and have a lot of anxiety and shame about all of their flaws. That if they weren't a part of that movement would just be a personality characteristic of yours, but they unfortunately decided to align themselves with a group that's gonna make them hate themselves over it. And they just want to be, they either want, some of them at the lowest level, just want a god emperor who's gonna strike down all the people that they're jealous of or scared of and all that stuff. Some of them though have higher aspirations. They want to be doing the striking. Another amazing thing about this movement, by the way, and I just Googled Mike Howell, they all look exactly like you'd think they look. I always find, I like when reality works out that way. But anyway, during the conversation, he promised to reveal the identity of the hackers, declaring closeted furries will be presented to the world for the degenerate perverts they are, which is just the best sentence. You cannot hide. Your means are minuscule, spelled incorrectly, compared to mine. You now can either turn yourself in or you can cooperate. Look at the faux bravado and toughness of this guy. This is a guy who has been weak his whole life. He's probably been bullied, he's been mocked. He probably is worried about the size of his means. And now he thinks he's close to power and he's just feeling so emboldened by it. Anyway, that proved unintimidating to the young hacker, who reassured him none of their members would be identified and that their hack is small potatoes compared to what the Heritage Foundation is trying to do, saying the rights your org violates will be 10 times worse than any crime I've committed. I think that's an underestimate, by the way. You do not follow God if you use a religion as a crutch to hate people. While I hide behind a screen to fight for my rights, you hide behind religion to attack the rights of others, which is just, that's great. I don't know who this hacker is. They could be 16 years old for all we know, but that's very well said. Howell then ranted that the members had, quote, turned against nature by dressing as the go-lucky animals. God created nature and nature's laws are vicious. It is why you have to put on a perverted animal costume to satisfy your sexual deviances. It is why you are forced to hide like a coward. You violated our rights and broke the law. You have no standing to discuss such matters. So first of all, in his profile photo on Twitter, part of his face is literally redacted. So again, in terms of hiding, I think that's just very funny. Also, the costume is not perverted. In your mind, what they do in it is perverted, but there's nothing inherently sexual about being a furry. I'm just gonna be very clear about that. But look at this guy. You turned against nature. You could not be more wrong, Mike Howell. They're dressed up like bears and wolves. If anything, they've embraced nature. You're the one who's turned against it. You're wearing clothes and stuff. That's not natural. You should be wearing your fur and you should be comfortable in it. But anyway, he's attacking them. There's even more. I think that's enough though, Mondale. This guy is a director of one of the most influential think tanks in the country. Their agenda will be Trump's agenda. And for all we know, they will go, like this guy for the next 4 years is just gonna be on a 24/7 vendetta against gay furry hackers. And he might have the power to actually lock them up. Any other thoughts?
This is Project 2025's Red Scare. Like this is McCarthy. Like what?
It's their Red Panda Scare.
It's the Red Panda Scare. We're gonna be locking up animals all 2025, bro. I am so confused. First of all, who the hell texts like this? Why do you talk like that? What is person? What is wrong with this person? My text messages are like, LOL, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? What this guy is sitting next to his synonyms and just like typing in words that he can say and then typing in, looking for bigger words that he can't spell, minuscule, and putting them in the chat. I'm confused. This is absolutely beyond scary. Also, while we're laughing and joking about it, we already said in 2016 through Donald Trump's first presidency, this organization had a lot to do with the policies that was presented.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That means this person, a person who thinks and operate in this manner, is leading an organization that will probably, if this presidential candidate wins, probably be writing the laws that will be part of what we are obligated to live by in this country. And that is not funny at all. That is scary. So while we joke about the gay furry animals and this guy's rant, this guy is really next door to the president in policies. And that's scary.
100%. Yes, yeah, we sometimes laugh on the show. Please never interpret that as not taking it seriously. We laugh to continue because we have to do this every day. But yes, 100%. Let's turn now to another aspect of this story. The Heritage Foundation has had nothing but bad news, and they're being thrown under the bus by Republicans, and Donald Trump is pretending that he doesn't absolutely love them. But they want to make sure that once they're back in Trump's good graces, you're more worried about Biden than you are about Trump. Ignore January 6th and the fake electors and all that. According to them, it's Joe Biden who might try to use force to stay in the White House if he loses in November. They put out a report. It's a blog post, but with a header. That's all it is. These think tanks are they're just right-wing trolls. Why are we pretending that they're anything more than that or that they're reputable? They're feuding online with furries, okay? They don't get to claim that they're reputable. But the report says the lawlessness of the Biden administration at the border, in staffing considerations, and in routine defiance of court rulings makes clear that the current president and his administration not only possess the means, but perhaps also the intent to circumvent constitutional limits and disregard the will of the voters should they demand a new president. Little fact check. Trump was the one who was rejected by the voters and refused to leave office peacefully. Again, we are not going to play hypothetical games about things that are not hypothetical. We are not going to look forward when the evidence is already behind us. We already know how Joe Biden reacts to his time in office being done. He left. He handed over, along with Obama, power to Donald Trump. And then how did Trump act? He refused to leave and they stormed the Capitol. So look, if I was the Heritage Foundation, I would be lying about this as well, because they know the guy that they support is a massive criminal, not only in trying to tear the Constitution up and stay in office, but in a million other crimes, which we may never get resolution for thanks to the Supreme Court. But this is super obviously turning reality on its head, but we all understand why. And Mondale, what do you make of this? Oh, Mondale, I think you muted yourself by accident.
I think you're absolutely right. They talk about gaslighting somebody. Like, I mean, this is unbelievable, right? Joe Biden has never won president except for against Donald Trump. The man ran a lot, so we know he know how to lose. The only person outside of Delaware that he's ever beaten in an election was Donald Trump. So we watched him lose elections and not pretend that the entire government was against him. We've seen it. So it is absolutely right that the Heritage Foundation must act in this manner to try to deflect from the fact that we've seen Donald Trump not want to leave the White House, even stealing things like secret documents and hiding them in bathrooms because he still wants to be president. So whatever.
100%. By the way, when it comes to like trying to figure out, now that we've established the truth, let's do hypotheticals. Let's talk about 2024. So Mike Howell, who briefly stopped fighting with 18-year-old furries online, put out a statement saying, as things stand right now, there is a 0% chance of a free and fair election in the United States of America. And by that, he means, I don't care what the result is, we're gonna claim that Donald Trump won. So Heritage itself has already pre-signed up for the next coup if Trump loses. Let's just keep that in mind. Also, Trump has been incredibly clear that he will not accept the results of any election that he doesn't win. He's already proven it in the past, and he's saying it about the next one. Also, Biden, through Karine Jean-Pierre, has already explicitly said that they will accept the results of the election. None of this mealy mouth, well, if we like it, well, if it's fair, well, if there's no mules. No, they're gonna accept it. So it could not be more clear. I might disagree with Biden on a lot of different stuff, and in a couple of minutes I probably will be. But I do not have any doubt whatsoever that if he loses, he'll leave office. It's obvious. Heritage is lying, and they're lying because they know they might need to like pre-excuse another coup to come in just a couple of months. But that said, we've obviously been talking a lot about Donald Trump. Let's turn now to the other side of the campaign. We obviously had the big foreign policy press conference with Joe Biden yesterday. And I had been asking earlier this week for some sort of like focus group to go on to talk to actual voters. We've heard a lot from pundits and politicians and everything like that. So CNN actually did a small focus group. Here is some of what came out of that.
The two of you weren't decided. My question for you, you weren't decided before this happened if he should stay in the race. How do you feel now after watching this news conference?
Relieved, and I think he should stay in.
So your opinion has changed? From not sure to he should stay in?
Yes.
Okay, and how about you? How do you feel? You weren't sure, how do you feel now?
Same. I think he's the logical choice.
He's a strong guy.
What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think what came across was that of what he is. Joe Biden is very caring about people. He's very knowledgeable and experienced, and he's not just out for himself, that he really cares about the country.
And there's no chance that you would be more confident with the Kamala Harris or your governor here, Whitmer, here in the state of Michigan.
Right. Yeah. I think Joe Biden did an excellent job.
During this news conference.
Okay, so that is a group of some established Biden voters, some people who were uncertain or perhaps had wanted Biden to step down, responding to the press conference. And look, obviously choosing, for a focus group is difficult. We don't know exactly how it goes, but we do know, according to the label, that was in Kalamazoo. So by the laws of American politics, it is valid, to be clear. But anyway, but look, those are people responding to it. And I think that in general, the response to the press conference has been from people who were already super in the tank, cautiously approving. There were a few issues, which we'll talk about, but it was not an absolute disaster like the debate was. Brian Kilmeade, even on Fox and Friends, said that Biden did fine. He also described that as the worst possible scenario for Democrats, but he acknowledged that he did fine. Then you had people like Lawrence O'Donnell saying it was the most masterful televised foreign policy talk from a president, as good as it gets. I don't know personally what Lawrence O'Donnell has been saying about Biden and him being the nominee for the past couple of weeks, but he's obviously super on board. The head of the DNC, the chair of the DNC, I should say, said that Biden put on a master class in the press conference. Now, as I said, it wasn't all super smooth. So there were a couple of mix-ups. So at one point, he referred to Harris as Vice President Trump, which is not ideal, obviously. And he referred to Ukrainian President Zelensky as President Putin. That one he pretty quickly corrected. The Harris one I don't think was immediately corrected. And so there were a couple of those little issues, but there weren't any examples of him like totally messing up his train of thought or sort of like shutting down. There wasn't anything like that. And so this was considered make or break for Joe Biden. We're gonna get to the response of some politicians. It doesn't seem like this has closed the door on criticism of him, but it didn't also, I don't think it opened the door more. I think we're largely in a similar status quo, maybe a little bit better of a situation for Biden. But Mondale, what do you make of it?
Listen, I think CNN going out of their way trying to find voters to agree with this little thing that they're creating or trying to create this narrative around Biden needing to step down. I think it's because they're in a ratings war with Fox trying to get Trump viewers' eyes back on their channel. They're chasing viewership instead of journalism, and it shows because they did this all out right after the debate. They were talking to a bunch of black people looking to see if Biden lost it, and he didn't. So now they got a group of all white women in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where 53% of white women voted for Trump. This is actually proving all of their pundits that they're paying incorrect. Like this focus group, if they were trying to say anything, they better pay attention to the fact that, hey, whatever our pundits, whatever our professional political folk are telling us, they're getting it wrong, because these people are actually saying a population of folk where you would expect 53% to not support Biden are sitting in the room saying that, yeah, we are moving towards him even more as he continued press conference. And the more we see him, the more we hear him, the more they're supporting him.
Well, look, full disclosure, I think that we probably disagree a little bit on Biden as the nominee. Not necessarily disagree about whether we think he will be the nominee. I'm like 80 to 90% sure that he will be the nominee. I am just so deeply worried about the polling and the chances for November that I would feel more comfortable with a replacement at this point. And also in defense of me, it is entirely possible that CNN and MSNBC are chasing viewers. I don't think at this point the argument can be made of me, because literally every time we talk about this, we lose subscribers. So I'm gonna tell what I consider to be the truth. It has not benefited me one bit in terms of my career, but I'm gonna continue to say what I think is true. But anyway, I'm also gonna try to, I always wanna be nuanced and I wanna be fair. I'm giving my evaluation of the press conference. If I was just biased and just hated old Joe and wanted to get rid of him, then I'd be ripping him a new one. But I'm not doing that. So we're gonna try to be nuanced. That said, I do wanna give some other updates coming out of it. So there has not been like a flood of more people calling for him to step down, but there have been some new defections. So Representative Jim Himes, top Democrat in the House Intelligence Committee, said, "We must put forth the strongest candidate possible. I no longer believe that is Joe Biden." Representative Scott Peters said, "The stakes are high and we are on a losing course. My conscience requires me to speak up." And Representative Eric Sorensen, a freshman swing district Democrat, said, "In 2020, Joe Biden ran for president with the purpose of putting country over party. Today, I am asking him to do that again." That said, other than arguably Jim Himes, these are not senior Democrats, and they're just in the House. It's not a group of like 20 Democratic senators or anything like that. Now, if we could jump ahead to graphic 7, there is anonymous plans of some sort of super friends group to come and talk to Joe Biden to try to push him out. And so supposedly the plan would involve a group of Biden's oldest and most senior Democratic colleagues. It is hoped, they say, that the team would include Chuck Schumer, Patty Murray, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn has been super on board with Joe Biden. Now, I think he said in the last 24 hours, well, he said, "I'm riding with Biden 9 times in a row." He did also say we have until X date to lock in who our nominee is gonna be, but he's been like 97% on board with Joe Biden. So I don't know that he's gonna be a part of any group of super friends. And I don't know, I know Cenk is still super sure and confident that he's going to step down. I feel like each passing day makes that less likely. I feel like him having gotten through the press conference without a huge issue, like he didn't fall face first over the podium or something. I just think I don't think it's super likely at this point. But there are still some people pushing for it, and we can get into like polls of what the voters think and everything. But Mondale, what do you think about the super friends group? Do you think there's gonna be a group walking over to the White House?
I don't think so. If they are, they're gonna have tea. Nobody's gonna Biden out. If you know anything about Joe Biden, the guy is rebellious as hell. And he's gonna stay in this race. The more they tell him to step down, the more he's gonna fight. And people just gotta acknowledge that. Also, let's be clear, man. if you ask Republicans before they return, to MAGA zombies, who was the greatest president ever, most of them would have said Ronald Reagan. Dude likely had Alzheimer's the entire time he was president. What are we talking about? We watched, and you said you're concerned about polls, and I hear that as someone who absolutely hate polls because they are horrible for the work that we do at Black Male Voter Project. Barack Obama was behind Mitt Romney at this point in the election. Hillary Clinton was ahead of Donald Trump at this point in the election. So I think people, the thing about it is we have this snapshot polls. If you look at what was going on in these past presidential elections, everybody that was leading at this point lost. Also, Barack Obama lost his first debate to Mitt Romney. JFK lost to Nixon. We watched so many people who became president lose their first debates. Ronald Reagan looked like an idiot when he was debating Jimmy Carter. I mean, like
in his defense, he is an idiot. So
touche.
Was.
You're not gonna get an argument there. So I mean, I think if we step away from what's going on and what regular voters are telling us, I think we're arguing different things. When I say argue, I'm talking about we have what the media is saying, what the pundits are saying, and what people believe to be true. And I'm thinking regular voters probably know what regular voters think more than pundits.
Okay. Well, I will say to close out this section, because it is my sworn duty to make as many people angry at me as possible. If you hate the idea, like you physically bristle at the idea of Biden being replaced, well, as of right now, I would feel more comfortable based on the polling I've seen with a replacement. It would also be very clear, not a replacement that would be my hand-chosen person. It's not gonna be AOC. It's just not gonna happen. We're not getting Jasmine Crockett or whatever. So it would be Harris. More than likely, it would be Harris who would replace him, and she seems to be polling like 2 or 3 points better than Joe Biden. But that said, I will also say to the people who think that he needs to be replaced and go many steps beyond that, as I've said a million times, I want him to be replaced as the nominee, but if he's the nominee, obviously I'm going to support him, and I am going to pray to whatever gods might exist in this universe that he wins, because the absolute worst possible thing for humanity is Donald Trump to win. And so everybody feel free to get mad at me as we launch into this break, and we'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna go with one of the last comments that just came in. Cynthia Moon says, Mondale is such a handsome and iconic looking man, such great energy coming off of him. How nice. Okay, let's see. On the other side, Mo Weems says, John Iadarola will eventually be joining Cenk and Anna in their new jobs at Newsmax and OAN. Yep, because you know me, I love Trump so much, obviously. The internet's a hell of a place. I don't know what to tell you. Like, have you watched the damage report? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to click on a random video that we've done over the course of the past 4 years. You tell me if that's an accurate takeaway. Okay, that's fine. OAN, I'm sure, will give me a lot of time to talk about how desperately we need a Green New Deal and all that stuff. Jay Hawker says, member for 37 months, says, I messaged Yasmin to check on her and she said she's doing okay. No floods or power outages in her area. Yes, she seems to have done just fine. On the other hand, one of my best friends, James, his power's been out for like 5 days in Houston, which is one of the most major cities in America. How could it possibly still be down? Anyway, G Carr gifted a membership. Thank you, G Carr, much appreciated. Gray Bird, member for 4 months, says, you're great, John. Thank you. I think I'm good, but I appreciate your support there. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Angus O'Sonnell says in a super chat, it's obvious that despite everything John does, says, thinks, and wishes for our future, he is a Trump supporter, obviously. Obviously. Diane Starr sent in a super chat with a super sticker. Thank you for that, much appreciated. The Centaur says in a super chat, the irony is that the group's name is just a take on Republican fears, and that guy took it literally as if he would be tearing off animal costumes to find gay people. Yeah, look, weird sexual hangups form, I don't know exactly what percentage of the conservative mind, but you'd see it on the pie chart. 20 to 30%, I think. It's their weird sexual issues. Chad Shisham Jr. says in super chat, Mondale, didn't know you were a Marine. Semper Fi, brother. Hi, John, keep up the great work. I don't know if I knew that you were a Marine. How has that never come up on the show before? I don't think.
I mean, we're talking about progressive ideas, John, even though you're a Trump supporter. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, the Marine Corps was my first job, and we don't talk about it a lot because I didn't join the Marine Corps for patriotic reasons. I joined because I needed to escape poverty, and nobody in my family could teach me about college. So it was my first step out of poverty. I learned a lot of great things, but I also met a lot of racist people.
Not surprised. But yeah, your reason for joining is the number one reason that people enlist in the military. Like the myth is that it's just about service to country or whatever. And for some people, I'm sure that's a part of it. But no, it's like wanting a position, a stable paycheck, some benefits, because obviously members of the military are generally treated better by the US government than people at large. So yeah, no, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Okay, Carbon Image says in Super Chat, the Biden pill would be so much easier to swallow if we had a real primary. I feel held captive by the Democratic Party being, not democratic. Hey, look, I was obviously frustrated by the lack of a primary too. That said, it is the case that when you have an incumbent, you don't generally have a real primary. It's just generally that isn't a huge issue in the long run. But now it is what it is. Brett the Bulldog Dragon, member for 20 months, says, after last night's conference, I'm praying our country can come together behind Biden before his chances are completely destroyed by MSM narratives. I want to respond to that, but it's gonna take more than the few seconds I have. So we're gonna come back from our break and I'll respond after this. Okay, so at the close of that, we had a comment that we need to come together behind Biden before he gets destroyed by the narratives of the mainstream media. And look, let me just say, I totally understand what you're saying and I understand the fear there. I will just say, I think that we need to be able to have conversations, and it is very easy and very common in politics for those conversations to be shut down for fear of harming someone's chances. And generally the way that comes about is in primaries. You do not attack the centrist Democrat if you're a progressive, because then you're just helping the Republican who inevitably wins. And as I've been saying for some time there, I've never seen that logic used to protect a progressive. It has never been the case that you don't criticize AOC or Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, or Cori Bush because it's gonna help the right-wing narratives. Progressives get attacked. It's only generally the establishment Democrats that get protected by this cone of we need to worry more about the Republicans. I personally think we should attack everyone in line with the amount they deserve to be attacked. But that said, I understand your concerns, and I think that we share the overall goal of defeating Donald Trump in November. And with that said, why don't we move into our next topic? In fact, we're gonna be talking about why he needs to be defeated, starting with this. The New York Times editorial board is not messing around this week, particularly when it comes to Donald Trump. They put out an editorial, and this is how it started. A black American flag with "He is dangerous in word, deed, and action." And they're not talking about like the new MCU villain. No, that's about Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for president, or soon to be crowned nominee for president. They say that he is unfit to lead, and then they describe him as a chilling choice against this national moment. And then there's even more. It just gets worse and worse for Donald Trump as we go. They note that the former president and convicted felon has now become the Republican nominee 3 times in 8 years, saying a once great political party now serves the interests of one man, a man as demonstrably unsuited for the office of president as any to run in the long history of the Republic, a man whose values, temperament, ideas, and language are directly opposed to so much of what has made this country great. They say that the events, criminal cases, January 6th riot, and other indicators, which it categorized as moral fitness, principled leadership, character, a president's words, and the rule of law, indicated that Trump had, quote, shown a character unworthy of the responsibilities of the presidency. They say that instead of a cogent vision for the country's future, Mr. Trump is animated by a thirst for political power to use the levers of government to advance his interests, satisfy his impulses, and exact retribution against those who thinks have wronged him. They also focus on the fact that, and they got into this with the rule of law, that he is like viscerally on a genetic level opposed to the law and constitution that forms the basis of our country. And I disagree with the New York Times. I certainly disagree with the New York Times editorial board quite often, but I agree with every single word that they've said there. I think it is very easy to focus on what's happening in politics right now and to be like hyper focused on that. But I do not think it is hyperbole to say that he is the least qualified to lead our nation of anyone who's ever been put forward by a political party, at least in the last century. And the fact that there are tens of millions of Americans that see all of this and like it is deeply worrying. It would be one thing if we knew who he was, but he did a good job of hiding it. And like, we're trying to get people to understand it, but he puts forward a totally different face. That is not where we're at. He delights in his failings, and his base does too. All of this is out in the open. All of it is transparent. And unfortunately, he still stands a pretty good chance of being president. Mondale, what do you make of this?
I think we all got a class. I think every American that loves the Constitution in this country and democracy has and actually, I think everybody in the world who loves democracy and America's position has a class action lawsuit against The Apprentice, because they sold us this fake ideal about Donald Trump, and they knew it was fake. They knew he didn't have the money. They knew no real billionaires, Warren Buffett, none of them would take that position. And they made Donald Trump this guy, this idea of Donald Trump that we have all came from that show. And it's been said now by one of the producers that it was a fraud. They went into the Trump Tower. It was musty. The couches was raggedy. There was no big boardroom. They made that for the show, and the world believed that was Donald Trump. And now he's moving around with the same idea that, hey, if I fool the people on Apprentice, I can fool the people in the real White House. And this is what we're getting. And all of these people are running around calling him the greatest business person of all times when he's failed at every business is based on this. So I think we got standing. We should form a worldwide class action lawsuit to shut down the producers of Apprentice and charge them for ending democracy and the greatest democracy ever.
I love it. And as you pointed out, yeah, some of the people involved in it have come out and just been like, this is what we did. It's been absolutely devastating and everything. Like, yeah, I don't know if obviously reality shows lie. That's what they do. It's never been this consequential before, I don't think. I mean, look, I disagree with some of the choices for Top Chef, but it hasn't really mattered to me, even in terms of food that much. I think that Shota got robbed a couple seasons ago, but I don't think it's really going to affect the nature of our system of government. In this case, though, you're 100% right. And look, that was the biggest, maybe most consequential phase of the decades-long lie that is Donald Trump. He is not who he was sold as. He has never been what he was sold as. He is what he is actually, and he does a terrible job of hiding it, as I alluded to. And I'm glad that they're being super clear about this. Obviously, the New York Times editorial board, they make, they have preferences in the primaries, in the general election. I don't know if they didn't talk like this about John McCain or Mitt Romney, because while I think the idea of either of them being president is devastating, it is simply worlds apart from Donald Trump being president. And we made it through 4 years of that, and there was a hell of a lot of damage done. And the prospect of 4 more years of a more emboldened and more protected Donald Trump, thanks to our corrupt Supreme Court being in power, I think should worry literally everyone. With that said, that's all the time we have the first hour of the show, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Mondale's gonna be joining me to throw away our garbage people of the week. And we have a little bit more besides that coming up after this. Welcome to the Aftermath, one and all. John Iadarola here, Mondale Robinson as well. Mondale, as always, thank you for being here. I know you got big plans coming up, so thank you for giving us some of your time.
Oh yeah, brother. It's always a pleasure to be next to the silver dragon.
Thank you. Oh my God. Okay, so we got stuff to do. We got our chore coming up. We're gonna throw away some garbage people. We got some stories to talk about, but first, I'm ready for your comments. Let's see. Stoneflower Dragon, member for 41 months, says we shouldn't refer to them as mainstream media because they're not mainstream. They are corporate media. I understand what you're saying. I guess, you know, when like CNN's viewership is only a couple of million people on a given day, maybe it doesn't make sense to call that mainstream when TikTok has 10 times as many. But people do know what you mean. It means the cable shows. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And thank you for being a member. Okay, let's see. Gabby Marita says, countdown to this hacker revealing that Mike Howell has a 73 gigabyte folder of furry porn on his computer. No, I disagree with you. Only in that I don't think that it's necessarily furry porn. I think that it might be something dark. I'm not making an allegation. I'm just saying what my gut feels like. I can't prove this stuff. It's like when I said that my gut told me that Blake Masters has human skin in his basement. I couldn't prove it. And I'm not alleging it. I'm just saying that's what my gut says. Anyway, let's see. Lynn says, John, do you plan on introducing yourself to Marge while at the RNC? I might run into her actually at the RNC, and she has watched the show. And I have been at times hard on her. I wonder what'll happen. She might beat me up. I don't know. We'll find out. Actually, Mondale, you want to come protect me? I need a Marine. Anyway, I've seen her do pull-ups. Anyway, okay, with that said, I think it's time to jump into this. We ready to go? Okay. It's the end of the week, and so it's time to take out the trash. Yes, indeed, Sir Ruskus von Ampari, the omnivore, the shredder of garbage, hungers. And so Mondale, I'll ask you this: who is your garbage person of the week?
Yo, so my garbage person of the week, John, only makes sense in the context of the Supreme Court ruling saying that businesses are people too. So with that thinking, I'll say that my garbage person of the week is mainstream media, or as the dragon just told us, corporate media. And the reason this is, if you take a look at some of the headlines that are all over right now this week about Biden's Democratic wall is cracking, it's unstable. Michael Bennet becomes first Senate Democrat to publicly warn that Biden can't beat Trump. And it goes on and on about Obama and Pelosi. What we're seeing of this so-called half a dozen, which is only 6, you all. 6 Democrats that said Biden needs to step down, is none of them represent actually the party, but the media is making it seem like Biden has lost this election. Promise you this, I've been doing politics for over 20 years. Anyone that's telling you in July what they know to be true about an election outcome is lying to you. No one knows who's gonna win an election. No one. Anything can happen. Hillary Clinton and her team should tell you this louder than anybody else. I'm so frustrated with the mainstream media because in a week that Donald Trump is talking about executions by shark, no one is covering it. No one in mainstream said anything about this, John. Literally, the fact that we are walking around in a world like zombies when we see a presidential candidate that is completely off the hinge. Donald Trump makes a mistake, nobody covered it. CNN and the likes are chasing viewership and not journalism. And for that reason, they are not Cronkite-like, they are more like The Apprentice. And they are garbage people, not the people doing the work of removing garbage, but the people that should be in the dumpster, like trash.
I appreciate it. And by the way, you're totally allowed to throw more than one person or organization or entity in. I have certainly done that myself. Yes, so I guess in theory, this is the closest I've been to being in the garbage because I have reported on some of that, not all of that. I've also attacked Trump quite a bit, to be clear. And while a lot of people were super focused over the last few months about, videos of Joe Biden staring off at the distance or whatever, how many mashups did we do of Donald Trump's brain falling apart? So that I'll say in defense of myself. And I will also say, I do not speak with absolute certainty on the future for a couple different reasons. First of all, I always acknowledge the many political predictions that I've made that go wrong. But also on the show earlier on Wednesday, I was on with Anna Kasparian, and she said that there was absolutely no chance Biden would win. I said I didn't agree. I think there's a very low chance that he will win, but I don't think there's no chance. I'm just extremely nervous. That's all I'm saying. And I agree with you. Anything can happen. I am waiting for it to happen. So
yeah, let's here's what I'm saying. And I'm just talking as a tactician, right? There's no opportunity for Trump to win this election unless something crazy like let me just say here's what, if you look at the numbers, the increase, there's not been a red victory really on a national scale since Trump came on the scene since 2016, right? The Republicans were supposed to win the midterm. That's history. Well, we saw history get uprooted, right? We saw Ohio do something that no one said was going to happen, right? Black men outperform everybody in women's right to choose. Now it's a part of the law, right? We see so many other things happening that because of Donald Trump, his as a president, if he endorses you, you're more likely to lose than win. And this has been the case for every candidate that he's endorsed. So I'm just saying that people are putting too much, and I think the difference between you and mainstream and why I called out mainstream and not all the media is because you're absolutely right. We've always, as progressives, been skeptical of Biden. We were screaming that they were stacking the deck. You probably for Bernie, me for Elizabeth Warren. I'm a part of the Elizabeth Warren Democrats. And I felt like the deck has never been good for progressives. And the primary doesn't fit us because of the way they set it up. But I think the difference is mainstream media is not playing that game. They're playing a different game, and it's dangerous in that it's all about views. We saw that start with CNN's debate when they let Donald Trump go unchecked. Nothing about the lie that it was told every 1 minute and 17 seconds, right? And then after that, they jump right into this narrative that the Democrats are abandoning Biden. Think about it this way. Let me say it a different way. If a lobbyist group came out and was attacking a candidate or elected official the way that Joe Clooney is Biden right now, we would be like, this is disgusting. This is money in politics having an overweight, right? George Clooney don't even understand the privilege and the disgustingness that he's displaying when one rich white man can call the old president and say, I'm about to talk trash about your candidate. He needs to drop out. I demand he drops out, or I'm going to stop raising money. This is why we need money out of politics. This is the disconnectedness in which we exist. When we see people, we just saw 5 white women in a room say they're more likely to vote for Biden after watching him speak in great detail on wonkiness. That press conference got extremely wonky, John. And I don't know why people aren't being honest about that. Put Donald Trump for 90 or 50 minutes in front of reporters asking real questions, and we're going to get shark executions.
Best case scenario, we're going to get shark executions. No, best case scenario, there will be a shark execution during that press conference. But anyway, yeah, look, I agree. And understood. Anyway, and I will say, again, in defense of me, I was not pushing for him to step down before the debate. But I will give you this. If George Clooney, no longer commenting on politics, has to be a side effect of getting money out of politics, I will accept that. I'll accept that perfectly happily. Okay, good garbage person. I like it. We're gonna turn to mine now. My garbage person of the week has been in the can a couple of times, and that would be Chaya Reichik, or Libs of TikTok. Wait until you see what she did to earn it this time. So she went on Twitter and effectively celebrated child abuse. That's the claim I'm gonna make. I'll show you the evidence and you can see whether you agree or disagree. So she reposted an Instagram reel, and then you'll be able to see her caption. So here's the Instagram reel, and she put "based grandpa" because she's very, very cool. Again, these right wingers are very cool and very hip. Don't ever forget it. So what made the grandpa based? Well, the clip doesn't show anything graphic, but we're gonna show you the actual clip so you can see what it is that Chaya Reichik was so excited about. Okay, so assuming that the caption there is true, and Chaya Reichik obviously assumes that it is true, What happened is this young person asked their grandparent to use their preferred gender pronouns and was violently assaulted by them as a result of that, was put in a headlock and thrown to the ground. And Chaya Reichik thinks that is awesome. She thinks that we would be better off if more grandparents were assaulting their grandkids for wanting to be treated with respect. And I would just like to say out of that, like the saying that Chaya Reichik is garbage is not nearly enough to express what I think about her. Unfortunately, we have language filters being on linear TV and everything. She is one of the most enthusiastically terrible people alive in America, and she is advocating for absolutely reprehensible changes to our culture. That person that you saw in that video is never going to trust their grandparent again. They're never going to feel comfortable around their grandparent again. What should be an incredibly important and enduring foundational family relationship has been ruined by the stupid, boneheaded bigotry of that old person. We should all see that video as a personal tragedy, and to the extent that it is reflected in other people's experience, possibly a national and cultural tragedy. Instead, Chaya Reichik thinks it's awesome. She thinks more grandparents should assault their grandkids. I have a kid. My daughter Raina is 11 months old, and we don't have a lot of grandparents anymore, unfortunately. But my mom is around and spends time with my daughter. The idea that my mom would ever say anything disrespectful to my daughter, let alone put her in a headlock and throw her to the ground, makes me sick to my stomach. And that's like hypothetical. Chaya Reichik sees it and thinks it's awesome. She's absolute garbage. Mondale, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, I can't stand Libs of TikTok. I don't understand why that's not banned already. And that's just yucky, like some form of bullying. And you're absolutely right about this grandparent. My niece actually came out a few years back, and she came out on Facebook because she was afraid to come out because my parents are super churchy people, super churchy country black folk. And my mom was the first person to respond, like, baby, we don't care about that. Come home. Like that wasn't even the response she was expecting. And I think, that is even like the fact that she was afraid to have that conversation with family and wanted to have it on Facebook before she talked to my mom and my dad or anybody about it was heartbreaking to me. Now, to watch this video and for this young person to have to go through this as they figure out life and step into who they really are, it becomes disgusting to know that your grandparent is responsible for choking you. And I mean, like, just what the world's gonna do to you is damn scary, because as a black person, I have this wonderful protection of knowing that my family always understand when I say I had a bad day because I'm black. But for them to express to their grandparents about having a bad day because they are who they are, that has already been destroyed. Like you said, there's no trust, there's no comfort in that, there's no space, no safe space in your grandparent. And damn, I don't know what that feels like.
It's just so absolutely sad. Like it's gonna be a long time until Raina can literally even talk, but she's gonna be like, it's almost impossible for me to imagine anything she could tell me that would cause me to have an issue with her. I mean, look, if she's not into board games, that's gonna be a problem, but we'll get past it if that happens. But in terms of who she is, like, I can't speak for all parents or whatever, but like, I knew almost instantly after I had Raina, that is the purpose of my life. If I messed up that relationship, what am I doing from here on out? And if I'm lucky enough to be alive for grandkids as well, which is gonna be tough. We had Raina late in life and everything. The idea, I will be on my best behavior to make sure that I don't say anything that gets me in trouble with them, because that is the purpose of life, is to have those relationships. And she's encouraging people. The right is always there to encourage people to mess up their families. They say that they love family, they focus on family. No, they are the party of awkward Thanksgivings. They are the party of force your conspiratorial BS on your family members. And thankfully on Twitter, we're not gonna read all the comments or whatever, but the reaction to what Chaya Reichik said was almost entirely oppositional. It is supporting child abuse. That's all it is. And so thankfully, a lot of people were not a fan of it. And that's what you'd hope to see. Okay, with that said, those are our garbage people of the week. Well, 64,000 of you voted for the community garbage person of the week over on the community tab of the Damage Reports YouTube page. And here are your top 5 for the week. Coming in with 1% of the vote at number 5 is the HOA president for yelling at teens for fishing in a lake. He snapped their fishing rod in half. Coming in number 4 with 2% of the vote, you have Carrie Lake for praising Steve Bannon while he's in prison. Number 3 with 9% of the vote, we have Greg Abbott for fleeing Texas during the hurricane. He's off in Asia on some sort of technology tour. Your runner-up with 16% of the vote is Mike Johnson for making cutting Social Security his top priority. I thought that'd be more popular. But no, your garbage person of the week at 71% is the concept of Project 2025 for their extreme policies on literally everything. So yes, you are very much in line with the American people in not buying Project 2025. Okay, with that said, those are our garbage people. We're gonna read a few comments. Aaron's Western Assault, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Jesper82, a member, love it. And the instructor gifted 5 memberships. Thank you to all of you. We rely every day on the members, so thank you. And we also love the subscribers. We are trying to get to 1 million subscribers by election day, and we're creeping up every day. So if you're not a subscriber, now would be a great time to become one. And with that said, let's jump into another story, starting with this.
Every year, of course, I am lobbied by people who want the government, therefore, to take up an even greater role in their children's life, be it daycare, be it preschool, be it after-school programs, whatever. They clearly want the children raised by the government. So I hope the press corps picks up on this, and I hope Republican and Democrat leadership put together some sort of plan for January in which we work our way back to where America was in the 1960s.
That is Glenn Grothman being uncharacteristically honest about his goals to bring America back to where it was at in the 1960s. Look, if you ask him a follow-up, he'll say, in terms of the government raising our kids, but keep it real. There was a lot about the 1960s and earlier periods that I'm sure he would love to return to. But there, he is strawmanning the American people's desire for the government to get off their back when it comes to what they do in the bedroom and their control over their body, but to provide a little bit of support and assistance in these difficult times in terms of the economy. And he characterizes that as everybody just wanting the government to raise their kids. Bear in mind, he's looking forward to January when Donald Trump theoretically could be sworn in and Project 2025 would be ruling our country, where they are going to be mandating patriotic education. They're going to be teaching mis and disinformation to our kids, forcing them to love a conservative concept of what America is, while pretending that there's only 2 gender identities, pretending that there's some sort of moral component to your sexual orientation. Oh, they're gonna be super involved in your kids' lives, just not in any way that would actually help them. Controlling them, making their lives a living hell. They're gonna be doing that every way that they possibly can if they don't conform in literally every way the right would like them to. But when it comes to actually being able to afford a house or whatever, no, you're on your own when it comes to that. So that's Glenn Grothman. Mondale, what do you make of it?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's absolutely disgusting that, like you're on the floor giving this speech and you begging that the press corps pick up on it. We want to make America great again. As I tell people all the time, when was America great before today? Like the greatest America's ever been, well, before the Supreme Court made all these rulings lately. But I mean, this is the time when most Americans have been protected by our Constitution, by our laws. So why are we talking about going back to a time when this country was segregated? When it was illegal for people like me to try to vote, even though it was supposedly on the books already since the 15th Amendment, people were still being hung. The 60s is when Kennedy was killed. The 60s is when both of the Kennedys were killed. The 60s when Malcolm X was murdered. The 60s when Martin Luther King was murdered. All of those people were murdered when they were fighting for freedom or president. What was great about the 60s? What are you winking to? What's the nod in the statement? Nothing was great about segregation and schools not being funded and little girls being spat on because they were trying to go to school and integrate schools. Stop playing with this idea that the 60s were great. Say what you're saying out loud.
Yeah, you're 100% right about all the cultural and racial stuff. I'll also say, the top marginal tax rate was a hell of a lot higher back in the 60s. Does he want to go back to that? I have a feeling he does not. So yeah, no, it's this mythologizing of this perfect time before all of these cultural things that make us so uncomfortable. You all remember the 1960s when gay people didn't exist and being trans hadn't been invented yet or whatever. And people who weren't lily white knew their place. That's what he's saying, effectively. It was a time when we could be more openly, like, have the rest of society and the economy in an absolute headlock. That's what he's wanting right there. Limited government. Here's a photo of him getting the Defender of Limited Government Award by the Institute for Legislative Analysis. They just want a small government. The sort of government that forces you to be pregnant. The sort of government that when you want to break up your marriage asks, yeah, why? Give me a good reason why you should be able to be divorced, because otherwise we're not gonna let you. Our government is gonna be really small, just small enough to force you to stay married to someone you don't wanna be married to. And contraceptives, I don't like it. So I don't think you should be allowed to have it. Small government stuff. Again, look, the hypocrisy is obvious. We're hardly the first person to point it out, but the drumbeat needs to never end. These people are absolute liars. They don't want a small government. They want a government that leaves the rich and corporations alone. And other than that, it's super vigorous. It's pounding Monster Energy drinks and it's hanging out in your bedroom. That's what it's doing. Anyway, we have a couple of minutes. Can we fit it? I don't think we're gonna fit it. I'm gonna read a couple of comments. Don Jr., sorry, we're not talking about you. I'm gonna read a couple of comments and then we're gonna end the show. Let's see. Green New Dealer Dragon is gonna put all of us in trouble by saying Brett looks different somehow. Did he get more handsome? Didn't think he could do it. That's great. I'm gonna see Brett in a couple of days, and he's gonna be mad at me. Anyway, let's see. Ash Fair, Blood Dragon, has been here for 14 months on Twitch, says, love starting my workday with John and Mayor Robinson. Thank you. Love it. Hoovian Scarf Dragon's been here for 23 months, says, do we honestly believe Trump will take responsibility for being the catalyst of Project 2025? He's a typical keyboard Conan. I've never heard that before. I like that phrase. Let's see. Corporations Ate My Baby says, this is the damage report, not the good results report.
Hello.
I used to make jokes about how I would love to be forced by our politics to rename the show because there's just not enough damage. So far, that hasn't happened, and it's getting on towards a decade. Anyway, Corporations Ate My Baby says, Jenk says Joe Biden will drop out today. I think it could happen, definitely by next Friday. Remains to be seen. I will just say, nothing but respect to Cenk Uygur. Last Friday, he said he would drop out by Monday. I acknowledge when my predictions are wrong. I'm gonna acknowledge when his predictions are wrong too. I love Cenk, but he was wrong about that. And so we will see. We will see. There is a difference between thinking something should happen and believing that it will happen. I will say. Anyway, with that said, thank you so much, Mondale, as always, for being here. Good luck on your event. I don't know if you want to say what it is, but so I'll be vague. But thank you, as always, for being here, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Indeed. Thanks for having me, man. And thank God Jenk's not the almanac.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, everybody, thank you for being here. I will be headed very soon to Milwaukee to do live broadcasts during the RNC, including with Cenk, not the almanac, Uygur. We're gonna be doing some shows. Other people are gonna be there as well. And jokes aside, we're gonna be having a lot of fun breaking things down. Will he get into a slab fight with Alex Jones? Remains to be seen. Am I gonna have to take down Roger Stone to even the playing field? I don't know. I've been watching a lot of WWE and my eyes immediately go to the steel chairs. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I'll also be leading the first hour of the Young Turks coming up later on today. It's normally a power panel. Today's a special show. It's just me and Francesca. It's a fantastic Monday happening on a Friday on the Young Turks. So I hope to see you all there. Corporations Ate My Baby says, thank you, workers at TYT. Love it and agreed. And with that said, for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.